You ain't driving, are you?
I steer a little, but the Ranger do most of the work.
This is my 4th year as a Santa. How about you?
I started the whole damn thing.
Ho, ho, ho! It's Christmas!
We decided that you could have one gift.
Early.
What is it?
That is a direct hotline to Santa Claus himself.
I can talk to Santa.
All right, revelers. Welcome to your worst Christmas ever.
Let's go!
You have $300 million in your personal vault. That's what I want for Christmas.
I don't want any trouble, okay? Someone's gonna scooch up that chimney.
Who is he? Because he's not your typical mall Santa.
Santa, are you there? Daddy said you were very busy tonight. My name is Trudy Lightstone. Are you gonna help us, Santa?
Yeah, Trudy.
Santa?
You're on my nice list. Santa Claus is coming to town. Time for some season's beatings.
Who the hell are you?
Boss, what if he really is the real?
No such thing as Santa.
These bad men, they're all on my naughty list. Naughty. That's naughty!
And what do you do to the naughty ones?
I give him a lump of coal.
Where is it?
I gotta watch.
I believe in you, Santa.
Come on. Which one of you did that? Prancer? So unprofessional.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. This is Mike. Joining me, as always, it's Mr. Venom. How's it going, Venom?
Greetings and salutations, holiday revelers. Yes, I'm doing pretty well, Mike, especially after seeing today's movie. I'm actually in a very good mood. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, lots of Christmas packages are starting to be delivered to our doorstep. So,
same here, yep.
All right. Also joining us, it's Don and Ellie. What's up, Don? How are you?
Yeah, well, this has probably been the bright spot of the last 2 days. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one.
Okay. Well, introductions out of the way. So we are discussing Violent Night that just released this past Friday in theaters. And it's starring David Harbour. I was like looking at the wrong list. I was like, what? That doesn't sound right. David Harbour, John Leguizamo. Those are probably the most recognizable names. David Harbour, of course, is Hopper in Stranger Things. John Leguizamo, I mean, he's been in tons of things. He should be familiar to everybody. So, our synopsis is when a group of mercenaries attack the estate of a wealthy family, Santa Claus must step in to save the day, and Christmas in parentheses. So, we're going to get our general thoughts on this one, starting with Venom. What did you think of Violent Night?
When you were talking about the names in this movie, you forgot the woman that I had a crush on through the entire 80s, Miss Beverly D'Angelo, who obviously is an older woman now, of course, but in the 80s, holy shit, I was in love with this woman. So it was great to see her. Absolutely.
Speaking of her today, while I was working, I threw on Vacation and Euro Vacation just nice. By chance.
There you go. All right, so let's get to Violent Night. I mean, what can I say? I had an absolute blast with this movie. This this movie is the sheer definition of just shut off your brain and take the movie at face value. We've got some great violent action, some awesome fight sequences throughout, some pretty decent storytelling. I mean, it's not classic storytelling by any stretch, but you know, if you saw the trailer, you know exactly what you're getting, and I do kind of appreciate that. Without the trailer kind of giving away too much, you know what you're getting, and that's exactly what you get. I mean, what can I say? Harbor's performance is great. Leguizamo, who I'm not usually a big fan of, this is his second performance in a row that I actually enjoyed. And again, it's because he plays a piece of shit really, really well. So between the Menu and this one, Leguizamo's having a good year for playing douchebags. So, hopefully he keeps that up. His name was even Scrooge in this one. His actual moniker was Mr. Scrooge, which makes perfect sense for somebody like me, who was never a big fan of Leguizamo through the 90s and early part of the 2000s. So, but yeah, what else can I say? This is a turn off your brain, enjoy Santa Claus fucking some terrorists up. Great violence, very reminiscent of something like VFW, where that movie was kind of under argument as to whether it was a horror movie or not. This one, I think this one's even less of a horror movie than VFW. I mean, honestly, this legitimately is a straight action movie, but because there's so much violence, you get some gore, you get some blood, it makes sense that we're doing it here. But yeah, I'll never call this a horror movie. But is it a fun-ass movie that'll keep you grinning from start to finish? I think it absolutely is. So yeah, this was a great film. Nothing, that I'm going to be, talking about at the end of the year. I seriously doubt. As I said, this movie barely qualifies as horror. Some people would probably say it doesn't. But I had an absolute blast with it. Great performances. I didn't dislike any performance in this movie. I thought everybody did a really, really good job, with the part that they had to play. Even the young teenage, Gen Z or douchebag did a great job with his role. I even enjoyed his post-credit scene, which was, a little insipid, but still mildly funny. So, yeah, overall, I had a great time with this movie. Didn't even notice the almost 2-hour runtime because it really does get to the action pretty quickly. There's not a whole lot of character development. You're introduced to Santa, you're introduced to the family, and then bam, the shit hits the fan. And it's basically nonstop action and suspense for, the next hour and a half of the film. So yeah, this one's a high recommend for me. As I've already said, it may not be something that genre fans necessarily are going to flock to, but ultimately, I do think it's an incredibly fun movie. I also think that the way that they're advertising it is a little bit of a misnomer. They're saying that it's Die Hard meets Home Alone. I'm going to disagree with that because really there's only one scene in this movie that would qualify as Home Alone-esque. I'm going to say this movie is Die Hard meets You're Next. If you guys remember You're Next from, I believe, 2011, I want to say. Somewhere around there. But yeah, which was my favorite movie of that year, by the way. So again, it just kind of tracks that I like these kind of secret badass type movies where someone is, victimized and then it actually turns out they have a background in violence and they turn it around on the captors. Absolutely adore those types of movies. So it totally makes sense. Just like You're Next, this is, gonna end up being one of my guilty pleasures of the year. I can't in good conscience put it on my horror list at the end of the year, but an absolutely fun movie that I recommend to most genre fans.
All right, I'll kick it over to Don for your general thoughts on Violent Night.
Yeah, okay. What else can be said? Just wow, this was a blast. Figuratively and literally. Yeah, as a straightforward action movie, this could very well be the best film of the year. Horror film is a stretch. I actually do think VFW, the comparison to that one is just apt on so many levels because it feels very much like that has they're compatible in a lot of respects. It's straightforward. Here's a scenario we're not really going to utilize like horror tropes to, spell things out. We're going to use action tropes, shootouts, lots of gunplay, brutal, hard-hitting, confrontations and fist fights, but not a whole lot of like general stalking, slashing, like the general horror kind of tropes that you would expect. And I would see how you can feel that way, because it's not necessarily like those scenes would be out of place. I mean, if you keep Santa as like this mysterious guy in the shadows lurking around doing all these things, you could probably get away with it being a horror film. But yeah, as it stands, this is straightforward, just hard hitting, tons of fun. It's a popcorn action movie, and I had just an absolute blast. It hits the ground running. You don't get much downtime. You don't get much chance to, notice. I mean, I was completely unaware that this was 2 hours until I was done, and I looked up and I was like, wait, it's like, wow, that lasted longer than I thought it would. And, it was like later in the day than I expected. So, yeah, I don't have much else to add. Like Leguizamo is a fantastic henchman. He plays these kinds of roles in his sleep, and he does them so well. Harbor's a great Santa. Maybe not necessarily one of my favorites, but he has the look of the build. He pulls it off well. The families, thank God, not douchebags. I mean, they were fun. They're not like the uppity, stuck in the mud kind of people that you think of when you see like, oh well, they're targeting a rich person's house. They're going to be like amoral douchebags. So yeah, that was fun to see. They were a more traditional family that just happened to have a wealthy job, and they had a lot of money to go around. But yeah, I don't have much else to say about this one. Could you just shave 10 minutes off of this and still tell everything in the same order? Probably, but yeah, I don't have much else to add. Could it be a top 10 for me? Maybe. I mean, we're doing the fresh cuts list, so for me, I have different criteria than you guys. So I could see it on that, maybe not on my true end of year list, but yeah, in general, it's a fun action. It's a not a horror film, but I'm an action guy and I love these kinds of films. So yeah, definitely recommended. Definitely a lot of fun. You, you know, I don't have much else different to add to that. After the last couple of days I've had, this was a breath of fresh air and definitely got me in the proper spirits. So yeah, very, very fun time, and definitely worth your time. Straightforward horror fans may have some complaints about the tone and the atmosphere, but it's a personal preference thing rather than anything the film proper does. So I'll count that. But yeah, don't have much else beyond that.
Okay, yeah. So as far as I go, I'll start off because I assume the whole issue of is this even really a horror movie would get brought up. So for like reference, even though I watch trailers and all that, for some reason I don't remember even seeing a trailer for this at the theater like you would most movies coming out. And I think for me, I just kind of bunched it in because what is it? Christmas, Bloody Christmas? Is that the Bagos one? The name of it coming out?
Yeah, I think that's Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, it's next
Yeah, I
No,
kind of just
yeah,
bunched it in with that, thinking, oh, okay, we're getting like two different ones. As far as this movie goes, I mean, to me, the most you could even claim horror is semi-home invasion, but it's more a robbery as opposed to them invading to like terrorize the people. So yeah, if you're going into it wanting a horror movie, that would be like the only issue. But other than that, if you go in wanting like a pretty damn good, effective holiday action movie, this delivers on all accounts. Like when I saw the synopsis of this, I was like, okay, this is the type of movie that like it could be really good, or it could be like a movie that's potentially like it has the blueprint there but doesn't quite deliver, because you never know, I think, with like holiday themed movies. But yeah, this one delivers. It doesn't hold back on the violence. I love the background story of our Santa. It's not like extremely in depth, but you kind of get an idea of the process of like where like a supposed Santa comes from, the origin. I like that the family is pretty hilarious. They're all like kind of miserable people in their own right, but their dynamic with each other is cool. I like how their character arcs kind of go throughout it. Jonathan Leguizamo, I think he's pretty charismatic as the villain in this, as is like his team of henchmen. One in particularly, the one that sticks around the house through most of the movie with the family. I got a kick out of him. Like every scene he was in, he cracked me up. For like an action comedy, I think this delivers. I don't have many problems, if any, with this. I think this could become like an annual watch. There's always a debate: is Die Hard a Christmas movie or not? Well, there's no debate on this one, and it's action, but it's also Christmas. So, I would say everyone go see this, go see it in the theater, support this, because it feels like something you don't typically get in the theater for like a Christmas movie. But man, if they can keep making movies like this every year, kind of like, we get our October horror movies, if we get our like October Christmas action movie or December Christmas action movies, I'm all for it. So, without kind of repeating everything you guys already said, highly recommended. Super fun, not much downtime, and even when there is downtime as far as stretches without action, the dialogue and the characters keep things moving at a quick pace. And I agree with Dawn. It didn't even feel like as long a movie as it actually is. So highly recommended.
Yeah, I didn't mention the Santa's backstory in my general thoughts, but I absolutely adored it. I am in God of War Ragnarok mode right now. It's basically everything. It's what I'm doing with all my free time when I'm not watching movies or working. So to see this particular background that comes off as very Norse, I just absolutely loved it. I mean, the shots of Santa in his previous life, if you will. I'll leave it at that for the spoiler-free section, but the shots of Santa in his previous life are absolutely epic, and I loved them. I absolutely loved them, especially because of a particular Norse god that is one of my favorite gods, which, again, I'm not going to say here because it'll give away too much, but yeah, that backstory, the shots of the backstory. I mean, honestly, I want to see a prequel to this movie next year. Next Christmas, I want to see the prequel. I want to see how this Norse warrior became Santa. Like, was it a punishment? Was it a gift? Oh, God, there's so many different ways that story can go. And that's the shit that I want to see. So, but even with the little piece of backstory that we got in this one, just absolutely great. Totally loved it. And the way that this particular Santa Claus brings in like real world relationship drama, but in a way that's not ultra dramatic. Like when he's talking about his wife and the fact that they're not together right now, you could see the sadness in his face, and you can kind of feel that for our little girl, Trudy, because her parents are split up as the movie starts, and her only Christmas wish is that they get back together. So her and Santa actually have this very deep conversation over walkie-talkie. That is one of my favorite scenes of the movie. At least it's my favorite non-action scene in the movie. Absolutely love that scene, the emotion there. Yeah, this movie definitely makes up for David Harbour and Hellboy, and I don't blame David Harbour for Hellboy. Hellboy was just a terrible movie to begin with, and he took the job, obviously, on the strength of Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy movies. But yeah, this absolutely makes up for that, in my opinion. But yeah, so much about this movie to talk about and enjoy. So I don't know. What do you got? You guys got anything else non-spoiler we can get into before we move on?
Trying to
think if I missed anything.
I know, same here. And I mean, yeah, I was trying to keep the backstory separate because I didn't know if that was going to be a spoiler or not, just because of how deep and. I was trying to think of that, but I mean that would probably be like the only thing I'm looking over my notes right now. But
nice. All right, folks. Well, that's your spoiler warning. We're going to get into it. I'm not going to do a traditional walkthrough for this one because if you've seen the trailer, you know the movie. Rich family of douchebags get together for Christmas. Santa Claus shows up. The real Santa Claus shows up to drop off gifts. A group of, former military terrorists or whatever you want to call them show up to rob the family, and our movie goes from there. So who the hell needs a walkthrough? I want to talk about this backstory, though. Santa's backstory in this movie. And for those who don't know, the Norse god I was talking about was Thor. I'm a big fan of Thor, not the MCU Thor, mind you. The image of Thor as this chiseled Adonis it's not my Thor. My Thor is the one that's in the current Game of War Ragnarok game, where he's fat. I mean, like, Thor has a big gut, because Thor, for people who follow Norse mythology, Thor is an epic drinker. I mean, he's literally drunk every single day of his existence. So of course he's going to have a belly. How can he be chiseled? It doesn't make sense. So the image of Thor in God of War Ragnarok I love, and this one reminded me of it so much, because we all know, David Harbour's not a buff guy. He got in pretty good shape for Hellboy, yes. So he does have the ability to get into good shape for roles. I know for the Black Widow movie, I know he also got into pretty good shape. But this one, he kind of just has his traditional dad bod. Like, he's got some good size arms and traps, but then he still has that big old belly from eating all these cookies and drinking milk. And I also absolutely love throughout this movie the scenes where he's eating the cookies and like judging them, where he's like, oh, this is terrible. Oh, this is out of a box. And then finally, when he gets to our location, he's like, oh, homemade, yes. And literally he's like in ecstasy from these cookies. It's just a scene you wouldn't really expect to see in a Santa action film, but it works so well for me. I mean, I guess we can go over the family. The matriarch of the family, of course, as mentioned earlier, is Beverly D'Angelo. She plays Gertrude Lightstone. She's basically, your average rich heiress, ultra rich heiress. And obviously, these terrorists are assuming that she has money in the house. John Leguizamo actually is the leader of this group, and a great leader he is. Like I said, everyone all the terrorists in this movie all have nicknames, like code names, if you will, and they're all great. You've got Scrooge, you've got Krampus, you've got Gingerbread, Frosty, Tinsel. Like, everybody has these great names, and of course Leguizamo is Mr. Scrooge, the leader of the group. But so like the dichotomy of that group I thought was cool, because these are all terrorists. But the first group of terrorists that show up, like, all of them have somewhat of a personality that's, somewhat enjoyable. Not to say that you're on their side necessarily, but like the guy who played Krampus, the big guy who got taken out, from the Home Alone trap. Like, I love that guy. I loved some of his reactions throughout the movie. Like, he was the biggest guy in the group, big, buff, German or Austrian, some kind of big European guy. But he had this wonder in his eyes when he thought, holy shit, is this the real Santa Claus? Like, and I love that little tiny spark of innocence. That's some good facial acting right there. So that was cool. But like I said, all the different members. Mike talked about, what was it, Frosty, I think, was the one that stayed in the house with them? It was either Frosty or Tinsel. Because Sugar Plum was the blonde girl. Mm-hmm. Oh, no, Sugar Plum was the Asian girl. I'm very sorry. The one who actually broke into the safe. Candy Cane was the blonde girl. There we go. Candy Cane was the blonde girl. Is that him? Andre Erickson? Oh, you know what? I still got my names wrong. It's not Krampus that I liked. It's Gingerbread. So who played Krampus? Okay, that's the guy you like, Mike, is Krampus. He was the one who stayed in the house. He definitely had the funniest lines throughout as far as the terrorists go. He had the funniest lines throughout. He was very entertaining. He was the one who had to stay in the house with the family whenever the rest of the terrorists went and either chased down someone who maybe got away from the main group, or when they had to go to open the safe. We haven't even talked about why they're there. Leguizamo kind of, gives away his plan about halfway through the movie, where he says he is aware that this woman who was being given money by the U.S. government as a go-between with third world countries, kind of selling them arms and, buying arms from them and blah, 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 doing it on the down low so that there was no paper trail between the U.S. government and these other third world countries. And one day she decides to just keep a bunch of the money, and she has $300 million in cash in her safe. And that's why these terrorists are here. They also are well aware of Gertrude having a kill squad, which is basically something that it's a personal militia that she pays for. Basically, she has a panic button, and as soon as she hits the panic button, that group that she calls the kill squad goes into action. Unfortunately for her, we get the very obvious double cross, of course, when the kill squad shows up and the whole family thinks, yay, we're saved. Of course, Leguizamo and the leader of the kill squad shake hands and, show that they're together and that it was a double cross. So, again, a very obvious double cross, but it doesn't really affect the fun of the movie. It's like, it's coming. It's happened in almost every Die Hard movie. We know it's going to happen here. So why the hell not? Let's talk about the Home Alone scene. We are also introduced to Trudy Lighthouse and her parents. I forget her parents' names, but Linda. Oh, her mother's Linda, and her father is Jason. So Jason and Linda. Jason and Linda are separated. It looks like they're about to go towards divorce. And as I mentioned earlier, their daughter Trudy, her only Christmas wish is for her parents to come back together, which, obviously strikes Santa because she's not asking for any toys, even though he looks on his nice and naughty list and sees that she's on the nice list with some incredible nice things that she's done. By the way, Santa's scroll is so fucking cool. I love this scroll. Basically, it's a scroll with no writing on it, but when he opens it, magically all the names of people in the general area will show up on the list, will just appear, and it'll say if they're naughty or nice and what they've done. Like all the things that they've done that make them either naughty or nice. And when they finally get to John Leguizamo, he has to open the scroll completely because the list of all the crimes that he's done are fucking amazing. We get the obvious scene where, the shit hits the fan. The terrorists realize that there's another person in the house. Santa, kills the first terrorist in a great little fight where he ends up throwing him out a window and impaling him on an upside down icicle decoration outside. Why anybody would have that decoration outside a second story window is beyond me, but okay. It's convenient for the plot. So once they realize that they have a dead teammate on their hands, they realize that there is someone in the house. They call him a gopher. We have a gopher in the situation, and he's already taken out a terrorist. The next time that Santa has a fight, this is one of the more entertaining fights here. I forget the name of the person that he's fighting in this scene. It might be Frosty. But basically, it's, again, big buff dude. Santa's having a tough time, getting the upper hand on this guy. Finally, at one point in the fight, Santa gets an upper hand on him, and he ends up stabbing him in the eye with a star from the top of a Christmas tree, one of those light up stars that, plugs in and it lights up, blah, blah, blah. Stabs him with the Christmas tree light. The guy doesn't die right away. He's basically on the ground, just kind of struggling, trying to get up. Santa goes ahead and he plugs the light in. And of course, instantly the guy is electrocuted. And then his whole head goes up in flames, which I actually thought was a pretty nice little effect. Very CG, obviously, but you take what you can get. Ultimately, the few CG effects in this movie don't hinder it. Even though they're very obviously CG, it's not like it's the worst shit you've ever seen. So still very entertaining and, very satisfying, honestly. The movie continues. Like I said, the terrorists do eventually get into the safe, and then they realize that the money is gone. The money that they got intel on, that was 100% there, is now completely gone. And you can tell whoever took it out of there was in a major hurry because there's still like $100 bills. No bundles of cash, but like some little loose ones all over the room. Like somebody was in a hurry. They were emptying the safe and they were in a hurry. When the terrorists realize that the money is gone, of course, they go back. They start torturing members of the family. They break Jason's finger in a nutcracker. And then at one point, they actually try to crush one of his testicles in a giant nutcracker. They've got like a 5-foot nutcracker there in the house. Apparently, Gertrude, Beverly D'Angelo, has an obsession with nutcrackers because there's a bunch of them all through the house. They have this great conversation about who's actually going to touch his junk to put it in the nutcracker. The girl, the blonde girl who's Candy Cane. Candy Cane, she's the one who first gets the order to put his junk in the nutcracker, and she automatically refuses. I'm not touching his junk. And then it just goes back and forth until finally Mike's guy says, I'll do it, whatever. I forget what ends up breaking up the scene. He does not get his testicle crushed, thankfully. I think that might be where Trudy gets away. At one point, Trudy just runs away from the group and she ends up hiding in the attic. And then these are the scenes that I really like. When Trudy is talking to Santa, basically early in the film, her parents gave her a walkie-talkie. Just a standard walkie-talkie with no second one, just a single unit walkie-talkie. And they convince her that this is a walkie-talkie to Santa. Because she didn't get a chance to go visit Santa at the mall, they're presenting her with this walkie-talkie. They basically say, Santa may not answer you, but he's always listening, so just tell him everything that you want. And later in the movie, after the shit hits the fan and everybody's in danger, she starts talking on it. Fortunately, the real Santa Claus took a walkie-talkie off of one of the terrorists that he killed, and she ends up getting a hold of him. And obviously, she's kind of skeptical. Is this really Santa? And Santa's like, yeah. And then to prove that it's really Santa, Santa tells her the story of when he gave her her favorite stuffed animal, Mr. Bunny, because she basically for Christmas that year said that she was very lonely. She didn't have any friends her own age. And she asked for a friend. That was literally her request. I'd like a friend. Santa delivers, Mr. Bunny, a cute stuffed animal that we see her with throughout the entire film. And it's a heartwarming story, of course. And, like I said, I absolutely love this. I'm not completely against emotion in my action movies. So yeah, it was a sweet moment between these two. And then basically Santa tells her, okay, stay in the attic, hide up there, and I'll come and get you later. And then she says, oh, I'm gonna make some booby traps, because she just saw Home Alone for the first time the night before, and she's really excited about it. So this is where the Home Alone references come from. And those traps that you see in the movie are all from this one scene. Basically, there's just one scene where Candy Cane and not Krampus, but the big guy again. I keep forgetting their names. Sorry, folks. Gingerbread and Candy Cane go up to the attic. And this is probably one of the funnier scenes in the movie because it is very much like Home Alone. I mean, it's the booby traps. She's got a board with nails sticking out at the bottom of the ladder going up to the attic. It's very obvious, so the terrorists just kind of laugh it off, like, really? Is this supposed to do something? And then as they're walking up the ladder, they see that there's a nail sticking out straight up, on one of the steps. And again, they're like, oh, amateurs. What they don't realize is that Trudy sawed one of the steps in half, one of the next steps after the step with the nail in it. So the guy steps over the board with the nail in it, steps on the broken step, and then impales himself through his lower jaw on the fucking nail. Does not die, obviously. I mean, that's not really enough to kill you. But just the shot of him on the stairs, just with the knife going up into his mouth, and his mouth is open so you can see the nail. Absolutely hysterical. Candy Cane ends up going up to the attic. She ends up running into a couple of more booby traps where she's got like a series of bowling balls lined up that she releases them and they roll into her, blah, blah, blah. They end up tearing her up a little bit. This girl is actually a lot smarter than we give her credit for, because then at another point in this scene, she sets up like a tripwire. But it's a big, bright yellow tripwire, and Candy Cane sees it right away. She's like, really, kid? Are you that much of an amateur? She steps over the tripwire and steps on a puddle of glue, of like industrial strength rubber cement. I mean, so her boots are basically stuck on there. She ends up falling backwards after another bowling ball comes hurling towards her. So now, like, her elbows and the back of her head are stuck, and she's in a very uncomfortable position because she's not like spread out, you know, in a line or whatever. Like her feet are caught and they're bent in front of her. It's just a really gnarly scene. She ends up pushing herself off the glue trap and literally scalping herself. She pulls off a big chunk of her own scalp. It's still on the floor in the glue. She ends up, because the boots are still stuck in the rubber cement, she ends up taking her boots off and walking off of the glue trap. And guess what's there, my friends? It's John McClane all over again. We've got glass Christmas ornaments all over the floor. She's stepping on them with her now bare feet because she took her boots off. And of course, you know, it's shades of John McClane, which, you know, of course is going to make any old action fan smile. So that was great. She ends up cornering the little girl, and the little girl starts using this makeshift slingshot that she created in the corner of the room. And she's using the slingshot to throw like little balls at her, like tennis balls and a basketball, nothing that would actually hurt Candy Cane. And eventually Candy Cane's like, well, fuck this. And she starts to walk forward. And instead of putting a ball in there, she puts a goddamn barbell that's got, I don't know, at least 35, 40 pounds worth of plates on it, and right into Candy Cane's face. Fucking hysterical. Kind of sort of knocks her out, but then she comes to fairly quickly, and then, you know, basically she pulls out a gun, and she's about to just shoot Trudy, because Trudy's cornered. She has nowhere to go. And then, of course, Santa shows up in the nick of time, driving his fucking sledgehammer into Candy Cane. This scene actually happens after what potentially is one of my favorite action sequences in the movie, and it's the shed scene. Basically, let me caveat this first by saying, during the backstory of Santa, he talked about his favorite weapon being a giant hammer, hence why it felt kind of like a Thor reference, you know. He also says that, you know, he's been Santa Claus for over 1,100 years. So, you know, we're talking like, 11th century Norse. And he does give his name, and it's a very Scandinavian sounding name. Like I couldn't possibly repeat it. It's very long, but yeah, so he has his favorite hammer that he dubbed Skull Crusher, but he hasn't seen Skull Crusher in years because he doesn't need it. He's not a warrior anymore. But he does end up finding a sledgehammer, just a basic sledgehammer, and he takes this sledgehammer and absolutely fucking decimates at least a dozen ex-military, fully armed ex-military who literally they have a computer that can read heat signatures. So they know that Santa's in that building, in the shed. They all go in there, and Santa systematically takes them all out in just an absolute glory of crushed skulls and blood everywhere. And when Santa walks out of the shed, of course, the hammer's in his hand and it's dripping blood in this absolutely epic shot. And the one guy who's outside actually monitoring the computer, you know, with the software that can see through the building, as soon as Santa walks out, he sees him, freaks out, starts to run away. Santa throws the sledgehammer over his head, you know, with both his arms over his head, and crushes the back of the guy's head. So fucking great. Ends up giving him a double tap as he walks by, because the guy didn't actually die after the first sledgehammer hit. And the second one is very definitely did the job. So yeah, Santa and his sledgehammer. Oh, goddamn. They're just such a guilty pleasure scene to watch this guy go through these fucking, like I said, heavily armed, heavily trained, you know, militia type members. Like I said, I've been calling them terrorists. You call them what you want. But yeah, just such a great scene. And like I said, that leads into the scene in the attic where Santa eventually saves Trudy. So that's their first face-to-face in the film. They finally meet. They come up with a plan to try to deal with the situation. At this point, Santa's already killed half of the terrorists. So, you know, he's not too worried about like running away. Because early in the movie, he actually has a moment where he thinks about leaving. After all the shit hits the fan, he gets out of the house. Unfortunately, the reindeer left him there. As soon as the shooting started, the reindeer got scared and they left. He thought they had left them, that they had left him because they were scared. At the end of the movie, they actually do make an appearance back, and they show up with Skull Crusher. So they didn't actually leave out of fear. They left to go get Santa's fucking hammer, which it just put a huge smile on my face when I realized that at the end of the movie. We get a couple of cool scenes with Santa's magic Christmas sack. Basically, the sack looks like there's not much in it as he's carrying it, but basically he just puts his hand in and he pulls out the correct gift for the child's house that he's at. And there's this great scene where the terrorists find the bag and they literally just start pulling out present after present after present. And finally, when they give up, there's literally a mountain of fucking presents on the floor next to them. And they're like, that couldn't possibly all fit in there. What the fuck's going on? Santa tries to explain it's magic. It's Christmas magic, blah, blah, blah. They end up getting pissed off about it, and Leguizamo throws it in a fire, which it burns up pretty quick, actually. And of course, Santa freaks out. I think his exact line was, "There's millions of children's dreams in that bag. What is wrong with you?" Blah, blah, blah. This is also where John Leguizamo's character, Mr. Scrooge, gives his backstory of why he hates Christmas so much. Basically, he said he lived with his dad. His dad was a single parent. They were struggling to get by, and right before Christmas one year, his dad got laid off, and he had to tell his son, I'm sorry, but we're just not going to be able to do anything for Christmas. I have no money to get you gifts, no money to buy a nice dinner, blah, blah, blah. And John Leguizamo, because he was so pissed off at his neighbors, because that year he couldn't do anything because, his dad lost his job, but his neighbors, went all out. They had all the presents, all the decorations, everything else. So Leguizamo basically that night as a teenager, I think he said he was 15, if I remember, it was somewhere in that age, basically breaks into this family's house on Christmas and gets caught. Hence, his name, Mr. Scrooge. I think he should have been the Grinch, though. I think the Grinch might have been a little better, but whatever. And this basically starts his downward spiral. It's the first time he's arrested, and basically it's the backstory of why he hates Christmas. So once he realizes that this actually is the real Santa, yeah, he's just pissed off, and he wants absolute revenge because Santa didn't bring him anything that year. Now that he realizes there's a real Santa, he's pissed off that Santa didn't bring him anything that year. And, Santa kind of explains that he doesn't give gifts to every single kid in the world. He gives gifts to the kids who need them the most. And when he gives that explanation, Leguizamo, of course, kind of goes off. Why didn't you help me? And Santa says, I don't interfere with people's lives. I give gifts to kids. That's it. I don't interfere with lives. And Leguizamo, of course, starts screaming at him, well, maybe you should. Maybe you should start, interfering with people's lives, because maybe kids won't turn into somebody like me. So blah, blah, blah. More action sequences follow. Yeah, blah, more terrorists getting killed. And then we get to our final scene. I skipped a lot, folks, but I'm leaving something for you guys to enjoy if you go see it. If you haven't already seen it and you're still listening to us, there's some funny members of the family, the sister-in-law, her douchebag actor husband. There's some great characters in here that we've barely brought up. So, like I said, it's basically our final confrontation. The only terrorist left is, of course, John Leguizamo. Him and Santa, get into a knockdown, drag-out fight where, of course, it looks like Leguizamo has the upper hand on Santa. But earlier in the film, Santa showed, his magic on how he kind of gets in and out of people's houses. He basically taps his nose, and then he turns into like this just gold mist type stuff that just goes up into the chimney, and then he reforms, as Santa back on the roof. So he's basically, transforming himself into mist or whatever you will. At the area where Mr. Scrooge and Santa have their final battle, there's a makeshift chimney there. That's, it's not connected to a house. It's just like a standalone, like, almost like a grill type thing. But it's close enough to a chimney that just as Leguizamo is about to give the death blow to Santa, Santa has a one-liner, of course. Every action star's got to have their one-liner. I don't remember exactly what the line was, but he basically, just as Leguizamo is about to stab him for the final time, Santa taps his nose while he's holding Leguizamo, and they both turn into the glitter, the gold glitter. and they go up into the chimney. But like I said, it's just a chimney. There's no house. There's no structure connected to it. So when Santa appears at the top of the chimney, Leguizamo doesn't have that magic, so he gets reformed as just a fucking bloody stump. Like all his body, all his extremities, his head, all just pop off. And when Santa reappears on top of the fucking chimney, it's just a spray of blood all over the place. And of course, this is a winter movie. And for
epic.
yeah, that's what I mean. For those who don't know, I fucking love blood in snowy movies. I love that effect. I've been waiting for a wintertime Friday the 13th movie my whole goddamn life. I know we got the fan film earlier last year, but I really have always wanted a full-on legit, New Line Cinema winter Friday the 13th movie. And we'll probably never get it, but whatever. But yeah, we get that ending and blah, blah, blah. There it is. Violent Night. Like I said, I skipped a lot, folks. We're just trying to. This movie doesn't need a full-on walkthrough. It's an action movie. You know what you're getting. You know what you're in for. It's just a damn good time. Go watch it.
I did like the fact that our Santa. Obviously, we get his little backstory, and the fact that he doesn't even understand all the whimsical magic elements yet. Like like he's learning on the job. I thought that was a cool little element to say, like, hey, I'm probably not the first one to take this over, so I'm kind of learning how everything works. Because like his sack of presents, like I think he even made a comment like, I don't know exactly how it works. You just reach in and get something, and it will be
he gift. Said it. Yeah, he said it multiple times in the movie because Trudy asks him how his magic works, and he says, I don't really know. The terrorists at one point, when they have him tied up in a chair, they ask him, and he gives the same answer. I don't really know how it works. It just works. I don't need to know how it works. And, and this is when the terrorists aren't 100% convinced that it's Santa yet. It's not until Santa escapes that torture scene, with his magic, touching his nose and going up the chimney, that they start to realize, or maybe not Leguizamo so much, but definitely Candy Cane and Gingerbread both are like, oh shit, that's the real Santa. And, you could see the concern in their face that, we're basically dealing with a god here, I mean, Santa, not literally a god, but he's got powers. So he's basically a superhero. And he's strong, too. I mean, this Santa is not weak. He takes a lot of punishment. In the opening scene in the movie, they show him crushing walnuts with his bare hands to the point that the bartender is even looking at him like, holy shit. He's just crushing these giant walnuts with his bare hands. And drinking a beer, of course. He's sitting at a bar, which I love that that's the opening scene, that it instantly humanizes Santa right from the start. But then right at the end of that scene, we get, a great culmination there with him basically flying away with the reindeer drunk as hell. And he ends up puking on the bartender. So that was pretty awesome. But yeah, like I said, there's a lot of this that I skipped out on because I just feel like you guys should go definitely check this movie out. Obviously, we've got Christmas Bloody Christmas next week, which I would imagine is going to be much more of a horror film. Again, I don't watch trailers, but, if there's nothing else for you to go see at the theater, I highly recommend this one. I was actually talking about this at work today during one of my Zoom calls where I was telling all of my teammates, you got to go out and see this. This was fun. I rarely do that with horror movies, so it's saying a lot that I'm trying to get people to go see this. So yeah, go check it out, folks.
Yeah, I agree. Christmas fun all around.
Thirded.
Okay, well, that was quick but to the point. I mean, that's the thing. It's like the movie, it's not very layered. It's pretty much what you see is what you get, and that's not always a bad thing. In fact, a lot of the time it's not. Sometimes that's all you really need in a movie as a piece of entertainment, and that's what this is. I think it's this movie's biggest asset is it delivers on the action. It doesn't.
I think it's its simplicity because it's just Santa shows up and defends the house from other people. Like that's really all what the movie is, and it's just okay. We're just setting up the next set piece. That's
It's not promising something that the movie doesn't deliver. It delivers on everything it promises and then some. So yeah, it's definitely a crowd pleaser. Get the family together.
Yeah, it's definitely not that cerebral. Like I said earlier, I mean, you can shut your brain off and just take this movie at face value, and I think that's going to be the best way to take it. Just have a fucking blast. Have a couple of beers before you go, and just enjoy the hell out of this, because I will definitely be seeing this again. I'm probably going to go this week and take Miss Venom to see it, since I saw it by myself this weekend, because I think this is something that she'll enjoy too. She is also, the diehard Lethal Weapon type fan, so. This will be something I think is going to be right up her alley. So yeah, I'll be seeing this multiple times in the theater, and depending on how good or bad Christmas Bloody Christmas is, who knows? I may see it again, because I'm going to be seeing that in theaters out here. I don't know if you guys actually have any screenings of it, because it's getting a limited release in theaters. I definitely have it out here. You guys will probably see it on streaming, but either way, it's a good Christmas so far.
If I get the opportunity to see it in the theater, I'll definitely check around for listings, because of course I would prefer, but if not, Shudder will deliver it to me.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Bagos is a very visual director. Bliss and VFW have just been, stunning visual, treats. So I'm trying again. I'm trying not to overdo my expectations, but I am still very excited to check this one out.
Alrighty, well, that's going to do it for Violent Night. And let's find out where else we can be heard. So, Venom, you're up first.
All right. No More Room in Hell presents Creature Comforts. Episode 13 is still our latest episode. We look at 1973's The Golden Voyage of Sinbad. That is available on darkdiscussions.com. Let's see. The main show. Yes. The main show finally recorded. Yay. It felt like about 2.5 months since we recorded a full episode. But yes, episode 49 is now in the can. I'm not sure. I don't think it's available yet, but I'm sure Mike will get it out sooner than later. So check that out. We are going to try very hard to get episode 50 out before the end of the year. But if it doesn't happen, we'll do it in January and, try to have some big things in store. It's a monumental episode, 50. So we'll definitely look to do something big for that one. Crystal Lake Gift Shop, still episode 2 is our latest episode. Obviously, with October being as busy as it is for horror podcasters, just didn't really have a lot of time to continue with that series, but we'll definitely be back this month. We may even be bringing back a guest that you've already heard on the show. We've only done 2 episodes, and we might already have a return guest, so check that out. That show, of course, is our episode-by-episode retrospective of Friday the 13th, the series. And let's see. Oh, I did a kind of guest, sort of return appearance on It's Not Horror Okay, a show that I was on for well over a year. I had to leave a couple of years ago due to my work schedule. Actually, that was at the beginning of this year that I left. So I've actually been gone from that show less than a year, now that I think about it. And basically the stars aligned, and I was able to work with them this past Thursday when we looked at potentially one of my favorite action movies of the 2010s. That is, of course, Dread with Carl Urban. Just absolutely epic fucking film. I mean, and the fact that we did Violent Night tonight is perfect, because Dread is just another one of those guilty pleasure over the top action movies with ridiculous gore and blood, and just so cool. So yeah, I got a good theme going this week of bloody action movies. Hopefully Joe Bagos keeps that streak alive. And then the only guest spot I have to speak of will be later this month on Cut to the Chase, where I believe all 3 of us actually are going to be on episodes of Cut to the Chase's 12 Days of Chasemas. My episode will be looking at 1972's Whoever Slew Auntie Roo, starring Shelley Winters, which I love Shelley Winter movies from the 70s. They're always so over the top nutty. So this should be another fun episode. And I think that's it for me, Mike.
All right, Don, how about you?
All right, as mentioned, Creature Comforts episode 13 is out for everybody. I think we're in the planning stages of the new episode. I think we're just trying to get everybody scheduled together. I think we have the film picked out. I think it's just a matter of when we're going to get together and get everybody's schedule cleared up to record that one, which should be a fun time. No spoilers on that, but look for that. Look for that to come out probably before the new year. But I again not saying anything just because it's scheduling. I do have both guest spots now available with the Nightclub podcast. Both of these were guest spots looking at individually. We looked at The Beyond and House by the Cemetery. So we looked at the last two films in the Gates of Hell trilogy from Fulci, which always a fun time. So those are available for you. They're on the Nightclub feed. You should be able to find those pretty readily. And I'm more than happy to say that we are returning in fine form on the Horror Countdown. I've already got 2 episodes recorded for the new year, which are going to be fun times. And I've got even better stuff coming up. Not to say that, these are slouchy episodes. These are going to be a lot of fun for you guys to hear. So I'm excited to start season 2, which should be available at the start of the new year. So, other than that, I do have a couple of the films, a couple of the shows that I've managed to secure guest spots on for my show have put up interest in a crossover for me appearing on them. So I'm probably going to be busier than Venom is because I've got like 6 or 7 guest spots next couple of months coming up. But other than that, I don't see anything else.
That's cool because that's another little cosmic coincidence, if you will. Don gets to talk about the second and third movies in the Gates of Hell trilogy. We actually just finished our review of the first film of the Gates of Hell trilogy, of course, called Gates of Hell to some or City of the Living Dead to others. But yeah, that's actually a part of episode 49. So between all of us, we did the whole Gates of Hell trilogy. Nice.
Yeah, cool.
All right, yeah. So if you're listening to this, like Venom mentioned, then you'll probably be hearing the new episode of No More Room in Hell, number 49, within a day or two. And then I have an appearance with Cut to the Chase for their 12 Days of Chasemas, recording, I'm assuming soon, since we're in December now. What else do I got? I think that's it for me, other than Venom mentioned also Crystal Lake Gift Shop. We should be scheduling, I guess, that pretty soon. And other than that, on the horizon, we're still gonna have at least probably a couple episodes of Fresh Cuts left, but on the near horizon is going to be our top 10 show, which I can't believe it's almost already time for that. But yeah, we're at that part of the year. We never have like an official week every year that it's going to record, but we're getting close. So look for that. Might be a
little late this year, right? Because I think we're getting a movie right before Christmas. Aren't we getting like a big release?
There's one the first Christmas? Week of January. So.
Well, yeah, not that one. I was literally.
Well, because last year we took half of December off, I think, to cram.
We took the last week because I think Christmas was on. I think it was like a Friday or Saturday, so I think we took we recorded for that week, but then we took the week off after. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think we took 1 week off. Yeah, because I always demand a week to kind of review my top 10. Well, really my top 20, and just start whittling movies out. Because usually that last week or two of December, I'm not watching new movies. I'm just kind of going back and checking my list. Yeah, and I'm very meticulous, so I need.
And I know in 2023 there's already a horror movie scheduled to release the first week. I don't know about the second week, but so yeah.
I've got screeners for stuff, but they're independent stuff for the 3rd or the 6th or one of those dates. So I've already got a couple of screeners for 2023 stuff, but I don't know if there'd be anything you guys would be interested in covering.
Well, Megan comes out in the theater January 6th, so that's for
Yeah.
sure one. But yeah, we'll figure it out. I mean, once we get closer, we'll have like an actual date we schedule that in. But other than that, yeah, that's it for me as well. So that's gonna do it for this episode of I almost said No More Room in Hell, but actually Fresh
Well, just
Cuts.
finish the name.
Yeah, well, now that we actually recorded the new episode of it, it's like in my head. But Fresh Cuts. So we'll be back in a week's time with another episode of Fresh Cuts. But until then, let's say bye to our listeners.
Later.
Only leave Santa fresh baked cookies. He hates the shit out of a box.
Never go up the chimney with Santa.